Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 236, The Secret Sauce of Introverted Leaders. Welcome to the new season of the Flourishing Introvert Talks, and I'm picking up on a very necessary theme this week to start the new season off. If you think back to 2020, we were busy figuring out the new norm of post-lockdown working. Hybrid working was becoming a real thing, even for the most traditional of organisations, and they were occupied trying to feel their way into what was the right thing to do. I know some bosses, and I hesitate to call them leaders, and you'll find out why in just a moment, who never stopped going to the office, even when they shouldn't have been there. The thought of working from home was an anathema to them, and because of their own preferences, they couldn't understand or believe how it worked for other people. Remember those times? Uninterrupted, apart from the pet, the partner, or the offspring. Hours saved on the costly commute and spreading waistlines from not wearing full business attire. Okay, so the last one clearly isn't a benefit, but it was a reality for many, including me. Since then, quite a lot has changed. Despite drastically cutting back on office space, so much so that many organisations have to operate hot desking now, organisations are now getting cold feet about hybrid working. What used to be, come into the office 2 or 3 days a week, is now becoming, we expect you in the office 4 days or even full time if you're serious and committed. We've even seen some high-profile control freaks telling the world and his mother on LinkedIn and in press articles how productivity is down, so we must get people to return to the office. Ready for my favourite saying? It's back again this season. Poppycock. What's really down is their ability to micromanage, to keep their beady eyes on presenteeism, which was never the right measure anyway, and being surrounded by sufficient people to inflate their ego or sense of importance. But there's something that's up as well, and that's proximity bias, where they're favouring those in the office and in their line of sight. Now, those things are not what inclusive leadership is all about. And we know a lot about that as introverts who've been at the mercy of the extrovert ideal for too long. That's one of the reasons I regularly share my real-time perspective on LinkedIn that both helps me become a better leader, and from the feedback I receive, it helps others grow into their authentic leadership style and competence. You'll find the link in the description for this particular episode. Now, this obsession with RTO, as it's now known, return to office, smacks of a lack of trust and probably points to how they were or would have been. Let me give you an example. One leader I know spends so much time on the golf course because, and I quote, "That's where the real networking happens." And he jumps on his people if they take a breath of fresh air between meetings. Double standards or hypocrisy? I'll let you decide. I often find that if I'm doubting someone, it's actually a reflection of my own shadow side. Maybe it's projection from a psychological perspective because I detect something in myself too difficult to own or admit. So I need to look at myself before I look to others and question or doubt their behaviour. Now, I know that we each have our part to play, and there's an old saying that goes something like, if you're going to distrust me anyway, I might as well misbehave. Because so many of us as introverts enjoyed how productive we could be working from home, we have the opportunity to bring that to the fore as we lead our teams in organizations, even the resistant ones. So let's take a spin around why the natural qualities and gifts that we introverts bring to our leadership roles is what's really needed now. Because we don't need to be in the limelight and we have our think, say, think communication process, we're more likely to listen effectively. And by effectively, I mean not just to respond, but to understand. We're more likely to listen right the way through to the end of what someone is saying. And we may even take a little pause at that point. That's what happens when people listen to understand. Now, I'm not saying that extroverts don't do that, but with their stream of consciousness communication process, their say, think, say, they're more likely to jump in before they forget what it was they wanted to say. Now, how does that particular quality of an introvert benefit our followers? And I say followers because technically all you need to be a leader is followers, not necessarily team members. Well, I don't know one introvert in the corporate world who hasn't experienced the frustration of biased feedback, who hasn't been given a flimsy excuse as to why a more outgoing but less experienced person was promoted ahead of them, or who hasn't suffered during a last-minute, poorly chaired meeting with only the sketchiest of agendas. We have a pretty good understanding of what people need because we listen. More than that, we listen with our eyes too. We notice who is checking out mentally because of the overwhelm or disinterest. We clock the enthusiasm of the Duracell bunny, so we ensure they're not taking on too much. And we register who needs a bit of alone time to prep before they will feel safe enough to open up to us. Our observation skills are priceless, and yet we sometimes have to work hard to make sure our observations are taken seriously. But the good news is that doesn't stop us. We are nature's watchers, but not in a creepy way, you understand. One of the natural talents that we have can be overused to the extent that it becomes a weakness, and that is our thinking or our overthinking. Once we learn how to rein in any tendency to catastrophization, because no one needs that in a leader, we get to demonstrate our clear, calm, level-headed, rational approach, balanced with emotional intelligence. The ability to anticipate risks, to scenario plan, and to co-create mitigating strategies without causing panic is what leads people to develop levels of trust and confidence in themselves that were previously unattainable. Now, we know that many introverts prefer to work as a soloist, but the great quiet leaders are those who know when it's time to bring a team of people together to co-create. And they're co-creating workable blueprints and plans. Show me a fully formed plan that has been created in a metaphorical ivory tower, and I'll show you a plan that will fail, and for a multitude of reasons. If you don't include those doing the work in the planning stage, their buy-in is restricted, and at best you might get blind compliance. At worst, you'll get disengagement and desertion. The pulling together of the right people also occurs when leaders have what Professor Amy Edmondson refers to as situational humility, one of the best leadership qualities in my book. It's when a leader has the confidence and the willingness to be vulnerable, to be able to say, I don't know how to do this. We've not encountered this type of problem before. But the egotistical leader thinks they have to have all of the answers. Not so. Another quality that I really admire in our quiet leaders is that of empathy. derived from their emotional intelligence, their EQ. And the good news is that this is one of the intelligences that can be developed. So, can you put yourself in the shoes of your colleagues, your clients, or your stakeholder? Because it's essential. And to what extent are you able to identify and manage your own emotions, your own responses to things? And how aware are you of the impact of your behavior on other people? All of these are essential for inclusive leadership, for problem solving and decision making. So, can you put yourself in the shoes of your colleagues, of your clients, of your stakeholders? To what extent are you able to identify and manage your own emotions? How aware are you of the impact of your behavior on other people? Because all of these are essential for inclusive leadership, problem solving, and decision making. And as Goleman himself said, EQ is a greater predictor of success than IQ. The qualities that I've touched on are some of those that make introverts such great leaders. Of course, there are others that often need to be developed too, and that's why I'm so committed to those who join my Frustrated to Flourishing program. It's not for everyone, and nor should it be. It's for those who know that they are ready to take the next step in their life and leadership journey. We all have followers, after all, regardless of position, rank, or seniority. And if you're in any doubt that your flavour of quiet leadership is needed, just let me remind you of some of the stats around productivity and well-being. As quoted in the Financial Times, recent research from Boston Consulting Group showed that 75% of employees were able to maintain or improve their productivity on individual tasks whilst working from home. And we know that technology aids that massively, because people who are able to drastically cut down the time they spend on their commute had more energy to focus on their core responsibilities. I firmly believe that our time has come, and the productivity stats prove that. Here's a snippet from the ONS May 2022 Employee and Employer Attitudes Towards Working from Home. 78% of people said that work-life balance had improved. 53% said they were experiencing fewer distractions. 52% said that it was quicker to complete work. And 47% said that their well-being had improved. Now, I know that we're here to enable that as introverted leaders because we're probably represented in those stats and are in no way a minority in those figures. You see, our time really has come, and it's up to us to rise to the occasion. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us, and leave a comment, because we know that that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.